Wow, that's the first time I've heard that. Hey, hey, Matt Hamilton, how are you?
I'm good,
Very
thank you,
nice
Eri.
to see you today. I think that I've prepped a lot of people in the audience as to why we are together, but I think for those who are just happening to stumble in and see this, let them know who you are and then what it is that you're working on, so that we can have a good segue into some of the questions that I have.
Sure, yeah. So yeah, I'm Matt Hamilton. I'm Director of Developer Relations at RippleX, which is one of the divisions of Ripple. I've been involved in the XRP community for probably about 5 years or so now. I started at Ripple about 3 or 4 months ago now. And the thing that I've been working on at the moment, especially along with my colleague Elliot Lee, is the XRPL grants program. And so that's why, hopefully we chat about it today, is, the fact that we've got a grants program started to offer funding for developers around, for projects around the XRP Ledger.
Yeah, it's really exciting because I think this is a good way for the XRP Ledger to build its awareness, but also too, there's going to be use cases, no doubt, that will incorporate the digital asset XRP. And that's always
Yeah.
an exciting part of the development, to find the additional use cases. Yeah, I watched the one that you did with Elliot. I think it was the second Twitch.
Yeah.
And then you've done two of them. You did two of them yesterday, and we'll be sure to add those links onto the description of this video too, that
Yeah.
should people want to take a peek. And it'll be on Cinnamon too, right?
Yeah, it'll be on Cinnamon. So those were two Twitch streams I did yesterday as kind of a sort of an AMA type thing for people to kind of come along and ask any questions about the grant program. I did one in kind of the morning UK time, evening Asia time, and then I did one later on for the US audience as well.
Wow, you did
To get,
three of them.
yeah. No, it was just two,
Oh,
but
okay.
the first one was hopefully to allow the Asian audience as well as Europe, and then the latter one was kind of more US and Pacific side of things.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so this xrplgrants.org, that is the website, right?
Yep.
But I did notice that in order to fill out the application, it is at submit.xrplgrants.org.
Yeah, so if you go to xrplgrants.org, there's the basic information about the grant program, and there's a big green apply now button in the top right corner, and several places on there that will take you to the form to kind of fill in the grant. The deadline for application is pretty soon. It's June the 9th.
Right.
So we've only had the application sort of period's only open for 2 weeks initially. And the reason for that being is we want to get things built, right? We want people to start going on things. And, it's kind of like, I don't know about you, but if the deadline is 5 weeks, then we'll think, oh, I've got a few more weeks to do it, right? So we're like, okay, let's do this nice and quickly. If people have any problems with that deadline and genuinely can't meet that and want some more time, then please do get in touch. The contact details are on the site there. You can email info@xrplgrants.org and they'll come through to us, or reach out to me on Twitter at Hammertoe, and happy to talk to people about it.
Yeah, it did surprise me that it was coming up so fast. It does create a sense of urgency. But,
Yeah.
and I think with what you are asking in the application, though it wasn't overwhelming, the basic information like your age, your location, your contact, describe the project. Yeah, is it launched already? Will it be open source or will it be under license? I mean, it's all pretty straightforward. There is a question I have in the part where you are looking for open source. I'm just kind of curious, do you prefer to have an open source project? And if so, how does someone actually create, how are they going to do, if they don't want to publish on GitHub their source code, because that's what the secret sauce is, that's what differentiates their project. I want to hear a little bit more from you on that.
Sure. So we would prefer open source projects because we're a big believer in open source in general, but we're not mandating them. If you want a project, and actually in the first video, I did actually misspeak there, because there was a question about does it need to be open source, and I said yes, but actually that's not the case. We are accepting non-open source projects as well, but we would like them to have an open source component to them.
Okay.
And the reason for that being is, I mean, the majority of software these days is open source, right? And the whole point about open source software is anybody can pick it up, can learn, can develop upon it. And that doesn't preclude you from building a business model around it. I mean, if you think like the wallet application by XRP Labs, that's all open source, right? And so, you know, you can have something open source, yet you can still build a business model around it and build something on it. So the XRP Ledger is open source, right? And, you know, most blockchain software is open source. So I think there's, especially when dealing with things like money and funds, there's kind of now an expectation that things should be open source, because it makes it easier for anybody to kind of, you know, look through and you know, assure themselves if they want to, or have a third party assure themselves that there's nothing, you know, nothing dodgy going on there, right? They can look at the source code and see what the project does.
I understand. And so this funding amount that you're going to give out, and it looks like you're going to possibly get lots of applications. Not everybody will probably receive funding, but you're going to do multiple fundings, and it ranges anywhere from 10,000 up to 200,000 for this particular round, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so we're looking for projects between 10,000 and 200,000 US dollars for this round. This is going to be an ongoing thing. And so we are planning another round in the autumn, and we're hoping for probably between 2 and 4 rounds next year as well. And so, you know, by all means, you know, try and apply for this one. If you've got an idea, we've already had, you know, a whole number of applications already come in, which is fantastic. You know, there's been a lot of, you know, it's been received very well. And, you know, we'll, you know, sort of go through these applications. But we will have another funding round sometime in the autumn as well. So if you aren't able to meet this sort of timeline and want to do something later on, there's that opportunity. Or if for whatever reason your application doesn't get funded this time, you have a chance to apply again, maybe refine it before, you know, the next round.
And also too, if someone does have a project that maybe has a roadmap that takes them out 6, 7, 8, 10 months or 24 months, you know, you just never know how long those roadmaps might extend to. There is the possibility to go for a second round.
Yep.
Or at least to be considered for a second round in the autumn, or maybe next year in the spring.
Exactly. So you might, you know, build the first part of it, get funding, you know, in this round for the first part of it, you know, build something. And then if that's successful, you might say, right, okay, well, we want to extend this now and build, you know, another part or the next bit of our roadmap or whatever it might be. And you could apply separately for that as well. You know, we'd like each part to be kind of independently on its own kind of, you know, a standalone sort of project. You know, whilst we're interested, you know, we're happy to fund parts of a wider picture. You know, we'd like this bit to be have some purpose on its own, right? So if we fund this bit, we would like it to be something that is useful on its own, regardless of whether or not it gets, you know, future development.
Yeah, some questions that popped up in my mind that I didn't hear answered in the Twitch session that you had, and it's probably maybe some things sometimes a developer will think is that is Ripple asking for any equity position in this project?
No, not at all. So this is different to initiatives we've done in the past at Ripple. So you might remember Spring previously, and Spring was a bit more of a sort of closer to sort of a venture capital type model in which Ripple actually took investment and equity often in companies. Whereas this is just straight funding. Ripple are not taking any investment or any equity or any sort of interest in those companies or projects. We're literally just funding things.
Yeah.
Ripple are still interested, you know, separately in, you know, partnerships and acquisitions and all that kind of thing, you know. So Ripple are continually building, they're continually hiring, they're continually partnering. So that's all going on separately. But for the XRPL grants, we're just looking at funding projects.
Yeah, and I can imagine too that some people, even though that you might have a fully open source project, but has anyone asked you to sign an NDA before they tell you their idea?
Not yet. No, not yet. So yeah, I'm not quite sure how that would work. But we've not had anybody request that. I mean, if somebody wanted that, then I guess we could consider it. But that's a really good point, actually, Eri. But that's not something that's come up yet.
Well, I just know that ideas are, you know, a gazillion of them out there. 99% is when you roll up your sleeves and get it done. But still, there's a lot of people who really feel uncomfortable with telling you their idea if they think someone's going to steal it. So I was just wondering if that was asked.
One of the things we are asking as part of the application process is we are asking people to spend just a little bit of time to develop some kind of proof of concept or initial bit to it. And, you know, so that we've got an idea that, you know, they can develop stuff, that this is a project. As you'd imagine, you know, running a funding round and saying, look, here's money for projects. We're going to get people coming from all over the place asking for funding, and we want to fund genuine, you know, developers building things, right? So we've kind of put a little bit of a bar in. Hopefully it's not too high, and just said, look, just spend a few hours, you know, just fleshing out the concept just a little bit, just to give us some impression of what it is that you're going to be building, and that you've got capability to do so.
Yeah, I know that you did say that even if someone had an idea, and only an idea, and they're not a developer and they don't code, that maybe possibly there is some sort of a possible match of people who can do that coding side. But I imagine that's very difficult, I imagine, to find.
It is, and there have been some people. I mean, I think I retweeted a tweet earlier from somebody who was saying, "Hey, look, we're looking for a developer."
Right.
I know that somebody on the Twitch stream said they are a developer and they're looking to work on a project. So there are some people out there who are, you know, willing to develop. And again, partly one of the things with this is to build the developer pool, right? So, you know, it's okay us putting out education. So I do these Twitch streams and saying, hey, look, these are things you can build on the XRP Ledger. And there's probably a number of people out there that would like to get into blockchain development, cryptocurrency development, you know, building things. You know, the XRP Ledger is a fantastic blockchain to build things with, because it is so, because the transaction times are so rapid, it actually gives you a whole different class of things you can build, right? And it, you know, you get that instant satisfaction when you actually make a transaction. 3 seconds later, it's done, right? You don't have to worry about, okay, I've got to keep this state around and keep checking because it might be 24 hours later that this transaction's finally confirmed, right? So it opens up a whole area of development, and some people might Ledger. So in combination with kind of the education that I'm trying to do, and the things like the Twitch streams, the blog posts we're putting out, the libraries, development libraries, and that, then, you know, we're getting and now adding some funding in, hopefully that will get some more people developing. That's the plan.
And the funding is going to come in the way of XRP, except for maybe there might be some exceptions for the US, but for any project outside of the US, it'll come in the form of XRP. And that when it's transferred over, that person could decide to just wait, for example, to see if there's any movement in the price in an advantageous way, so that the funding could be more. But again, that always could go in the opposite direction too.
Exactly. So you know, obviously I can't comment on what the best approach to that would be. The safest approach, I guess, would be when you receive the XRP to you know, get it into your local currency, whatever currency you're going to be using, you know, as soon as possible. It would be probably the safest approach in terms of sort of stability of funds. But it's entirely up to the developers how they approach that.
Yeah, that's an interesting component that I think that could be a real benefit, or it could be a real disadvantage, depending.
Yeah.
So the type of projects, I know that they have been categorized on the forum. You're just outlining some, like, does this fall within an NFT? Does it fall within infrastructure or security? Does it have social impact? And I wasn't quite sure what you meant by that. I was going to ask you to describe what a social impact project would be. There's educational, and then any others that you can just put out there that you've seen that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, and this is the thing, is that again, one of the great things about open source development is you don't know who's doing it, right? We don't know who's building on the XRP Ledger.
Right.
And, I found this doing the stream so far. I mean, there's somebody on Twitter, NVS, who came on, who demoed a iOS app that he was building that allowed you to send XRP via iMessages. I had no idea they even existed, right? I didn't know they were developing on the XRP Ledger until they popped up and say, hey, look, I'm building this. Would you like to see it? And I was like, yes, that's great, right? So there's people out there, doing all sorts of stuff that, we're just not even aware of. Yeah. So there's ideas we've maybe thought of. There's ideas that come completely out of left field that we've had no, not even considered. And that's the beauty of it. And that's what we want, right? We want the creativity of the community of, blockchain developers to kind of look at doing things. And another thing, it might be an existing project that doesn't yet use the XRP Ledger, right? So you might already have a project that might already be running that uses, say, Ethereum, for example. And you might think, well, okay, well, that's great, but the gas fees are pretty high, and we'd like to do something with the XRP Ledger instead, because that would reduce the gas fees, which reduces the fees to our end users. So you might have an existing project, but that you want to add XRP support for, right? Or it might be some existing project that doesn't use cryptocurrency at all at the moment, but you feel that, okay, adding that in might give a more efficient or flexible way in which to send or receive payments. And you want to add that into your project. So yeah, that would be great. All sorts of projects. In terms of things like, you mentioned sort of social impact.
Yeah, I didn't really understand that.
Again, these categories are pretty broad, right? But social impact, I mean, it could be something along the lines of, people have talked about things like carbon credits, for example, is a kind of a classic example of that sort of thing. What else could it be regarding social impact? It might be like, funding a particular area that is underserved, that needs sort of funding there. Developing a particular tool that could help a particular marginalized community or something like that. So like I said, they're pretty broad. I mean, in some ways you could say that cryptocurrency's social impact all of its own. So yeah, just put down what you think, really, in that regards.
I gotcha. And then as far as the well, I had the little question here about matching up people. When you actually, if there is someone who really does have a fabulous idea, it's an idea you've never heard of, and you really think, wow, would that person to help them out most likely be coming from the Ripple X team, maybe, right?
To help possibly matchmake them, yes, but probably not to do the actual development. So we will be matching people up with a kind of a mentor at Ripple X. So each project will be assigned like a designated contact, a designated mentor. So if they've got questions about particular best practice or ways to do something, or they're not sure quite how to do something, they will have a dedicated contact to
That's a
ask.
good idea. That's a really good idea. Is this the first time that Ripple has approached the getting these ideas off the ground, doing it this way?
I think so, yeah. I mean, we've done hackathons in the past regarding certain things. So, for example, last year we did the PayString hackathon, and we've done stuff in connection with UBRI, which is the University Research Blockchain Initiative that runs under Ripple Impact. And we've done things like hackathons, like that. We've done, and those have had a prize. So they've not been project funding, but they have had some fairly substantial prizes that people could win for developing things. So, for example, the PayID validator that Robert Swartout created was, I think, a winner of the PayString, one of the PayString hackathons, and so he got some funding from that, for example. But this is the first time I think we've really done it this kind of way around. Like I said, we've tried various things in the past, like Spring did sort of more venture capital type investment in, I guess, more, I don't want to say more established businesses, because generally venture capital is obviously coming in early on, but this is, I guess, an individual developer with an idea can come to get funding and, to get something built. And we're also aware that we're funding potentially, risky thing. We're not trying to invest in something and get a return on it, right? We're trying to invest in these projects. Some of them are going to be successful. I hope a lot of them are successful. Obviously, there's a chance that some of them will fail. And that's okay, right? We might learn a lot from that too. People will learn that, okay, in this particular circumstance, this particular approach doesn't work.
Right.
And that is very valuable.
Very
But people
valuable.
won't take that chance unless they have, the financial ability to do so. And so by, putting some of this funding forward, we're allowing people to take some of these risks, to do some of this experimentation and build some of these projects, and we'll see where we go.
Yeah, I think it's great. I had a question that came in. Somebody who's working on a project wants to know if the requirement for the XRP wallet is going to change soon from the minimum 20 down to 5 cents, like we heard from David tweeting out on Twitter. Only because I think this project out there that someone was thinking about or is working on involves wallets. So
Right.
yeah, if you have any comment on that.
So the current wallet minimum is 20 XRP, which
Right.
the current rate at the moment is just under $20. And the network can vote to increase or decrease that, right? And it has been decreased in the past. I can't remember what the original value was, but it was, I think, 150 maybe, something like that. And it's come down a couple of times down to its current amount of 20. Now it can be voted to come down. It's much harder to kind of vote it to go up again because that obviously inconveniences people a lot more in doing that kind of thing. So any step to drop down has to be very well considered. Now, it's not up to Ripple as to whether that happens. It's up to the validators on the network to vote on it. And some validators are already voting towards halving it to 10 XRP per wallet reserve and dropping it from 5 XRP per trust line down to 2 XRP per trust line.
Yeah.
And so that is currently being voted on. There's a number of validators on the network that have actually voted for that. So that may happen.
Right.
But that's out of our hands, really.
Yeah.
That's up to the community as to whether that happens.
But
one thing I will say on that, though, is it's trying to happen. Yeah. One thing I will say on that, though, is one of the things that Ripple are working on is you've probably seen the thing about side chains, and we've talked about sort of side chains and CBDCs, for example. There's going to be some more information coming out about side chains soon, about what we've been working on and kind of what our sort of vision of it is, and for the rest of the community as well to kind of see and contribute to. But one of the advantages of side chains is you can set up your own effectively separate XRP Ledger instance network of which you can set the parameters. So you can decide that you want the wallet reserve to be 1 XRP or half an XRP or whatever you want it to be on your own private network. Now, this has pros and cons. Obviously, you have the benefit of having a private network. You have the disadvantage of having a private network because you've got to run it. And, is it centralized or decentralized? If it's just you running it, then you'd probably argue that it's centralized. If you had a number of parties running it, then you could say that it's decentralized. So, there's pros and cons to it, but that's something that's coming up and that will give some additional, flexibility with regards to that. And if you imagine things like, XRPL Labs' hooks amendment, you can imagine they've got a test net out already. If you connected that using a side chain to the main network or the main test net, for example, then you could send transactions that might go, between the two, and able to use kind of the hooks on the hook side chain and then come back to the main chain. But that's all kind of depends on where things go in the future with this.
Yeah, I like the flexibility of that, at least having the option to do a private chain. And then it's up to the project managers actually to handle whether it's a CFI or a DeFi project or open source, what have you. It's interesting. That kind of leads right into this fifth question I have, because that was smart contracts. And the question this person had was, will there be some smart contracts with in-house functionality, like Codius, for example, or do they have the option to create a bridge to Flare, or, they're wondering, is Flare integrated within XRPL, and does it digest the whole hash of Flare? This is the questions that I received. So
right.
Hooks is going to be like Codius, is that correct?
So they're similar but different, right? In different respects, right? So Codius was an initiative that was originally started by Ripple, is mainly being run now by the Interledger Foundation. And Codius allows you to run sort of smart contract code off-chain and then communicate via Interledger with whatever blockchain. Could be the XRP Ledger, it could be another blockchain, right? And the idea behind Codius is you can run any code, right? But you have to run those servers or find somebody to run those servers for you, right? Codius, you have to have Codius hosts that run the code.
Okay.
So you could kind of think of Codius as being, sort of cloud services, cloud, there's a system called Kubernetes and a system called Docker that allow you to run instances of code, somewhere on the cloud. I can create something and I can say, okay, I'm going to run this on AWS. I'm going to run this on IBM's cloud. I'm going to run this on Azure, wherever I want. Codius is a bit like that, but with the ability to monetize and to pay for that service as it runs. Hooks is much closer to kind of the smart contracts that you would see on something like Ethereum, in that the smart contracts run on chain and run in a specific language. You have to write it, so they're written in C and compiled down to WebAssembly, and then run on chain on the nodes on the network. So it's kind of close to that approach as Ethereum. Flare is a totally separate network. Flare has actually no specific connection to the XRP Ledger at all, in that the XRP Ledger, okay, put it another way, the XRP Ledger does not need any alterations or modifications to work with Flare, right? There's no alterations going on to the XRP Ledger in order to work with Flare. So Flare is a separate network that just happens to work alongside the XRP Ledger particularly well, right? Because the Flare developers have designed it such that you can transfer value between Flare and the XRP Ledger, exactly, go backwards and forwards. And you can run, so the Flare network runs what's called the Ethereum virtual machine, which means you can take smart contracts written in Solidity for Ethereum and run them on the Flare network pretty much unaltered on there as well. So would we be interested in funding a project that has something to do with Flare? If it has something to do with Flare, yes, I don't see why not. But I mean, our focus is on the XRP Ledger, so it would have to have some involvement with the XRP Ledger as well, right? As part of it. It couldn't just be a Flare project, for example.
So I understand the Solidity language with the virtual machine in Ethereum, but if they were to choose to work with hooks, what is the best proficiency in coding for languages that are required?
So hooks are compiled down into what's called WebAssembly, which is a language that runs directly on a virtual machine, a bit like the Ethereum virtual machine, but a bit different, a WebAssembly virtual machine. At the moment, the hooks are all written in C, so you need to know C and then compile it down to WebAssembly. I believe that in theory, you could write it in any language that could compile down to WebAssembly, but I think all of the tooling and libraries are in C at the moment for development.
Okay, good. I think that answers for that person who sent that question. I think, yeah, that should be enough information for them to go on. And then let's see, coming over to, this was just an extension. This was another person, but they want to know if there was an API. Is there going to be an API available for Codius or hooks? And if so, is there going to be a how-to session for devs? And how many languages is it supporting? And is there an SDK?
Right. So
a lot of questions. I know.
Yeah. So Codius, I'm not sure. Again, that's mainly the Interledger Foundation that are dealing with that. I think they're doing some more work on that at the moment. I know it's been slightly dormant for a few years, but from what I've heard, Stefan Thomas is very keen on kind of, they are doing stuff with Codius and they want to do some more with it. So that will be very interesting to see where that goes. In terms of sort of any sort of training sessions around hooks, I certainly hope to be doing something on the Twitch stream about getting Vita or Richard Holland or somebody on there to kind of do a session about hooks, and maybe we could live code some hooks as an example, would be very good. So there's and hooks does have some documentation as well, and they've got a test net as well available that you can go to. I think if you just Google hooks, XRP hooks testnet, you'll find it. It's run by XRPL Labs, and I think the documentation is all linked there for that.
That's good. Okay. Um, let's see, number 6, will you be able to see the list of ideas that you funded? That's a good question. I wanted to
Yeah,
know that. I want to, you know, not, it would be really great to see what wasn't and what was,
yeah.
but I think probably at least to see what has received funding.
That would be great. Yeah, and I think I don't see a reason why we wouldn't do that. I don't know if we've explicitly kind of, I don't think we've quite got to that bit yet. Obviously we've been trying to get this all kind of going as soon as possible, but I think we'll be publishing the list of projects that were funded. Yeah. Probably not the ones that weren't funded, as you say, because there's, you know, probably reasons for that, and they might want to go ahead and apply for funding at a later date or whatever.
Right, at a latter date.
Yeah, but the ones that have been funded, I think we'll probably be publishing that. Yeah.
And maybe some people don't mind being, maybe for the names tied to the project, maybe people will want to stay anonymous, and some probably don't care. It's a case-by-case basis, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Perhaps maybe we'll have to investigate that and say to each of the projects, you know, what sort of public information would you like us to publicize, right?
Right.
So maybe if we ask them to fill in a form as to, okay, you know, if your project's been funded now, what would you like to kind of say about it, that would go public? So,
Yeah. Good. Okay, so by the end of June, I heard Elliot say that they should have a decision, right? So it's really fast. I mean,
yeah.
you're going to have all these applications in by June 9th, and then by the end of the month, it'll be decided. That's a lot of work by a group of people to go through all the projects.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's going to be quite a bit. I mean, it's a nice problem to have, right? So to go through all these projects, like I said, we've already had a number of projects come in already, which is great. And they, you know, they're coming in literally, you know, all of the time. You know, I'm on a call talking to somebody, and my email goes bing, and there's another one that's come in. So you know, at the moment I can't, you know, keep up with them. I'm going to sit down over the next few weeks and kind of go through them all. There's a few of us that are going to be working through them. So yeah, that's the plan. It's going to be quite quick.
It's kind of exciting. And tell us, for everybody who knows you in the community, we have known you for a very long time. Like you said in the beginning of the video when it started, that you've been in the XRP community for 5 years.
Yeah.
It's a long time to be on that side, and I know you haven't left that side at all. I totally know, I see that from your tweets. It's the same, pretty much the same Matt Hamilton as it's always been, but now you have this expanded experience and view and responsibility and position with the Ripple X team.
Yeah.
I'm sure everybody's a little bit curious of, you know, what's it like?
It's great. It really is great. I mean, I was I had my reservations at first, right? Because I'm a fairly, you know, outspoken member of the community. It's probably the politest way of saying that. And so, you know, I was wondering about, you know, when I joined Ripple, what will that be like, you know, as being on now the other side of the fence, looking out rather than looking in. And, you know, from my previous bit, kind of on the outside looking in, I was always like, well, Ripple should really do this with developers and do this with developers. And, you know, I wrote a letter to Ripple in 2017 asking if they had a job. And, you know, I didn't get anything back saying, well, you know, do you have any role for sort of community manager or developer relations? And so it's kind of like now's kind of like it's put up or shut up, right? So now I'm in there. It's now my job to, I've been kind of, you know, saying about, you know, I think Ripple should do this or do that or whatever. And now it's kind of my job within Ripple to try and help with those things.
Yeah.
But Ripple's been fantastic. I tell you, it's a really, really good company. It's interesting seeing, obviously on the outside, there's a whole range of perceptions that people have, and the community is very broad and diverse, and you have people from all different expectations and experiences, and you know, so you get a lot of different viewpoints from the outside. When you're inside, I will say, you know, they really are a fantastic company, right? Just in the way they operate internally, the people within there, they are great. But on the other hand, just like everybody within this industry, it's a young industry, and everybody's trying to work out what's going to work, right? So Ripple tries some things work, some things don't work, and we're kind of learning just like everybody else with this kind of thing. But we are very much committed to the XRP Ledger. We're very much committed to XRP. There's no doubt about that. And the kind of formation of this RippleX business unit, which formed middle of last year, is really kind of pursuing that, right? It's really kind of pushing XRP Ledger, XRP use cases, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I'm sure that you're having a good time. You're a perfect person. You are a perfect fit for what you're
Thank
doing.
you.
Yeah, it's just you're so well liked and have the trust and the likability factor, and I just think that they were very, very smart to put you in that position. Yeah.
Well, thanks very much, Eri. I mean, one of the things that's great is really trying to kind of bridge the between the two sides, right? And I'm trying wherever I can to get Ripple to work more in the open with what they're doing, right? There's certain things on like the RippleNet side for obvious reason, the commercial confidentiality, et cetera, but a lot more of the stuff on the RippleX side, we should be able to do more publicly. And I'm saying, well, look, we need to get the community on board with us. We need to get the community involved in a lot of the things we're building. And you're kind of seeing that with, so NFTs, for example, is a really good example. That Visa started the XLS 14 spec, which is otherwise known as the Visa standard for NFTs, and it is a very lightweight approach of doing NFTs on the XRP Ledger, right? Without any change to the XRP Ledger, you can do NFTs. And, this goes back to because the XRP Ledger was originally created to tokenize things, right? It was built, 9 years ago to tokenize things. And so, NFTs is just really a kind of a slightly special case of tokenizing things that the XRP Ledger's already been able to do. So that was fantastic. This, XLS 14, and there were 150 comments on the thread in GitHub discussion regarding that from both inside Ripple, outside Ripple, about how we can do it, what it means. It was really fantastic. And then following on from that as well, we published, so just again this week, Ripple published XLS 20, which is the standard for native support for NFTs on the XRP Ledger. So that's taking things then a step further and saying, okay, well, let's actually make a special case for NFTs on the XRP Ledger. Let's make them first-class objects. That way we can give them certain specific properties and functionality that people might expect of NFTs beyond what you would expect with fungible tokens, right? So the ability to have commission on second or third sales, down the line, for example,
right,
is something that's quite common with NFTs. Yeah. Is not common with fungible tokens, right? You don't have, if I sell dollars or oil or gold or whatever, you don't have second, third sale commissions coming back to the original whatever author of those dollars, right? That doesn't even really make sense. But for NFTs, it does.
Yeah.
And so we're with XLS 20, we're adding in the ability to do things like that. We're adding in the ability to do NFTs in a much more efficient way on the ledger as well. And that's been published, and we're getting feedback on that again from the community. And so, that's going to be started to be developed in the next few months with, a hope that standard gets put up to the validators for vote, kind of maybe autumn, end of the year, that sort of time frame. Yeah. But again, ultimately, it comes down to the community and the validators if they accept it, right? Yeah. And this is the interesting thing, right? As Ripple, we might want to build something, but ultimately, it's up to the community whether that ever sees the light of day on the ledger, because it's the community that controls the network. Ultimately, we don't. And this has actually been, an interesting thing to see within Ripple, because, I've had to sometimes remind some of my fellow colleagues, hey, look, that's great that we build this, but we need the community support, because if they don't support it and don't vote for that amendment, it's not going to go live, right? We can't just work away in secret and suddenly take the covers off and go, ta-da. We really need to build, the buy-in from the rest of the community on these things.
Yeah. Well, that's really a good way to balance the development, I think, that comes out. But maybe it does also sometimes create a process that is slower than some people are satisfied with.
Yeah, it can be slower, but also there's some unknowns there, right? So, in a traditional, in a say, enterprise, software development type company, which Ripple is. If you look at RippleNet, I mean, they're an enterprise software development company, and if you look at the structure, it'd be very similar to a company that makes databases or search engines or CRM software. It's a very similar process. They have a sales team, an engineering team, a customer relations team. All of those same things are exactly the same. With RippleX, it's kind of like we have project managers and we have, like whatever, a go-to-market meeting regarding a bit of functionality, but ultimately whether it goes live is not up to us. It's up to the network and up to the community. So it's a slightly different process than you would have in like any other software development company. And so people that come into Ripple, it's something they've got to, kind of get their head around and be aware of, that, yes, we can build stuff, but ultimately we need it approved by the rest of the network.
And it's a majority rule, right?
Yeah, it's a majority rule, and Ripple have a minority share. I mean, we don't even have enough votes to veto something, right? Ripple's been outvoted in the past on amendments, so we need 80% of the validators for 2 weeks to vote yes on an amendment before it gets ratified. So when we create something and put it out there, really we need the rest of the validators and the rest of the community to support it. And so that's why we've got to work in the open a bit more.
Are there times where where not everybody votes? I mean, you probably don't have 100% participation all the time, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Sometimes you get people that are, that don't vote on something for whatever reason. Either they haven't made their mind up, or they're just not that committed to it. But on the whole, they do vote, because with the XRP Ledger and running a validator, there is some commitment to doing that, right? So there is some cost to doing that, to running that. People generally run validators because it fits in with their overall goals, business goals or personal goals. So they have some commitment to it. And the validator community is very active and communicate a lot. So, if somebody's not not voting on something, then the chances are they will do. It's just a case of, for whatever reason, they're not doing it at the moment specifically. Yeah.
Well, it's interesting, and it's a good thing for everyone to know who might be new, that we have a lot of new people in this space as of late. So that's a good point to touch on. Yeah, to let everyone know about that. Well, Matt, I really think that I've got all the questions, and I think that if people are interested, those links that I'm going to put in the description below to Twitch are really, really good. What you did with Elliot today was superb, and I think it's super exciting. I hope you get a lot of projects, and I hope that there's some real winners that come out of this list.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Eri, and I'm very excited about it. I mean, like I said, we've had some projects come through already, and looking through them, there's some fantastic looking stuff there. So it's really really positive.
Yep. Any last words you want to leave us with?
No, other than say, hey, look, if you're a developer or know a developer, or that's interested in XRP development or looking for funding, then please, xrplgrants.org. Go there. If you've got any questions, reach out to me at Hamato on Twitter, or by email, info@xrplgrants.org, and they'll come through to myself and Elliot, and we can kind of go help with any questions.
Yeah, I hope it's wildly successful, because I think it's really great to give that opportunity for not only the use case with the XRP Ledger, but also the chance to use the native token, which would be the digital asset XRP.
Yep, yeah. Indeed.
Super. All right,
great.
Matt, I know you have a busy day, so do take care. All right.
All right. Thanks a lot, Eri, and great to chat to you.
Yeah, we'll say goodbye for now. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Bye.
Bye-bye.